This presentation was created for Ohio Christian University's online Modern Rhetorical Theory class, Week 5, Learning Activity Number 3, Postmodernism and Rhetorical Theory presentation, created and edited by Amber Ginter. What is modernism? In order to truly understand postmodernism and how it influences modern rhetorical theory, we must first learn to comprehend the modernism that it evolved from. Originating after the rise of existentialism and capitalism, it is said that modernism arose during the 1860s as a result of the philosophy of modern art. Though these developments are important to its further contribution, our focus will primarily be centered on the rhetorical attributes, thus leading us to postmodernism. Based on Jack Somerset's definition, we are reminded that while modernism was associated with the rise of capitalism, rational thinking, and scientific proof for how we constructed our thoughts, this movement took our thinking away from the imagination of creativity and instead centered it on the things proven by facts. However, society quickly drew bored with this idea and began to question why things were the way they were. Thus, postmodernism could only be understood if we first understood modernism. After all, postmodernism is the rejection or collapse of modernism because though it possessed some of the same key ideas, it now lacked faith in anything. After World War I and II, as well as nuclear bombings, our culture began to claim that there was more to life than what we could prove. Therefore, everything was now a choice that you could live, interpret, and analyze things any way you like. Now that we have adequately defined modernism, however, we can now define postmodernism. According to Zacharias, postmodernism is defined as a belief with no truth, no meaning, and no certainty. Radically transforming our worldview, some say that postmodernism is the rejection of many modernism attributes. It is a form of nihilism because it possesses zero hope and believes that nothing in this world has real existence. Therefore, life is utterly meaningless. Now that you have a basic background of both modernism and postmodernism, we can discuss the core root of this presentation: how modernism affects or has affected rhetorical theory. From a theoretical standpoint, postmodernism often involves the three theorists of Lyotard, Baudrillard, and Jameson, who will in turn help us to understand the interpretations of postmodern media via rhetorical theory. Jean-Francis Lyotard, born in 1924 and died in 1998, is one of the key fathers to today's postmodern rhetorical ideas. Rejecting grand meta-narratives, these were the large theories of the world involving science and research, the progress of history, and conception of absolute freedom that everyone once believed. As a result of his discontent, however, he proposed that these grand narratives be viewed with suspicion, and truth should be challenged, because remember, there is no absolute truth, meaning, or certainty in postmodernism. Similarly, Jean Baudrillard, born in 1929 and died in 2007, presented the idea that there is no longer a distinction between reality and its representing image. In other words, this idea of hyperreality coins that there is only surface meaning. There is no longer any original thing for the sign to represent. The sign is the meaning. Literary theorist Frederick Jameson additionally coins this postmodern phenomenon as a waning of effect, or an inability of ordinary people of our era to feel passionately about anything. Incorporating the belief that a mix of reality with simulation are interchangeable, Baudrillard gives us various examples. Take the picture of the flag listed above, for instance. His rhetorical view of this flag would note that though we once symbolized it as freedom, peace, or America, this distinction between the flag and its symbol no longer exists. Finally, our third theorist, Frederick Jameson, born in 1934, and still alive today, was mentioned in the previous slide for his waning effect contribution to modern rhetorical theory. Possessing a historical viewpoint of postmodernism, he believes what we noted at the beginning, that postmodernism is a direct result of modernism. Characterized by a lack of depth and replaced with surface details, he coins postmodern culture as results of irony and parody, as our culture recycles historicism, the random choosing and erasing of historical depth. Thus, based on these three theorists of postmodernity, I would state that postmodernity has affected rhetorical theory through a stylistic approach, sense of rupture, continuity, and incompleteness, and its overall representation of a metonymic relationship. Regarding its stylistic approach, the rhetorical theory of postmodernism compromises a set of core ideas to shape its presuppositions. The more these terms are understood, the greater the representation of postmodernity becomes. Some of these key terms include generic blurring, intertextuality, parody, hyperreality, hyperconsciousness, and depth of representation that will be explained and defined in the next few slides. In the sense of rupture, continuity, and incompleteness, Gradonero underlines a distinct correlation between postmodernism and the rhetoric developed. For rupture, postmodern ideas broke away from the mold that modernism had tried to establish. And a risk of total relativism and deconstructionism, the rhetoric of rupture presents the idea that postmodernism is founded in obsolescence or outdated ideas. According to Fitzpatrick, postmodernism is founded in the very concept of this, of the modern, of the individual, of the history with a capital H. However, the rhetoric of continuity proposes the counter idea that what greatly distinguishes postmodern ideas is its lack of creativity, but continuity of previous yet now slightly tweaked ideas. Here, reevaluating, rewriting, or reinterpreting things is crucial in what Lytard supports in favor of the postmodern being part of the modern. Its incompleteness, though, is what attempts to shake all ideas of modernism, attacking any thought of rationality, progress, or democracy, and instead replacing it with a new or deeper reflexivity. According to Granero, rhetoric accompanies modernism and postmodernism, even if the last one might be conceived merely as hypothetic theory rather than a present state of affairs. Finally, these two prior influences develop a metonymic relationship that greatly defines the rhetoric of how postmodernism has affected rhetorical theory. According to Scheffler, the postmodernism can be seen as a culmination of modernism. On the other hand, the postmodernism is separated from modernism through a radical negativity. In other words, this relationship does note that there is a connection or codependence between the two. However, these ideas are also independent in their own complexity. Based on these three overarching ideas, our stylistic approach mentioned the following key terms: generic blurring, intertextuality, parody, hyperreality, hyperconsciousness, and depth of representation. Here, the definitions as well as some examples are listed, so you can take the time to pause this video and read over them. Accordingly, 3 visuals for these rhetorical terms include an additional 3 visuals that you can take the time to again pause and then come back to this video. The first is a trailer for the show Returned that I believe demonstrates this hyperreality and generic blurring. The second is a document that greatly explains how visuals and media explain the rhetoric of postmodernism. And the third is a link to some postmodern art that Lytard would apply to this period. In conclusion, an overall comparison and contrast is given here to differentiate between modernism and postmodernism. As you can clearly tell, though the ideas are similar, postmodernism stands apart in that it seeks no truth, leaves behind all resources of fact or science, and deconstructs previous beliefs. Likewise, some analogies that conclude this postmodern rhetorical view are seen above. Nihilism, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and the Bible can all represent the connection between postmodernism and rhetorical implications. Again, take the time to go ahead and pause this video and read over the analogies listed. Overall, an important issue to consider here is the impact that modernism had on postmodernism. Though postmodernism likes to believe it is its own original concept, it is clear in this presentation that even its lack of belief in anything only arose from the influence modernism first had. Without a highly technological society based on facts and reason, postmodernism never would have rejected the idea. Likewise, this brings about some important implications on the further development of rhetorical theory. That is, in what direction do I see postmodernism pushing rhetorical studies? Sadly, I do not like where postmodernism is headed in the sense of that it believes in nothing, without absolute truth or reality. This is a rejection of Jesus Christ, who is the truth and the scriptures of his word that are factual to us as Christians, but mere opinions in the light of postmodernists. As a result, postmodernism is pushing rhetorical studies to think less about proof and more about what you want, when you want it, and how you want it. Unfortunately, as Christ followers, this means that our rhetoric must be ever more rooted in the truth of scriptures, the words we proclaim, and the gospel that we share so that we can counter the belief that no belief at all is the freedom of this meaningless life. With my Works Cited page, this concludes my PowerPoint presentation.